Yes, when we started this discussion of placing Chicago at the epicenter of this notion of being a preeminent city in the area of producing the kinds of media that would shape the conversations around the world, whether it was delivered over broadband or delivered over a mobile phone or watched on a TV set, the idea of Chicago really being at the center of all this was a discussion that seemed like it was worth having. And over 500 of you showed up at the Cultural Center to affirm that this was a conversation worth having. I think if you've been able to see this over the last 2 days being here, and as the thousands of people will see this, no matter how we decide to put it out there, one thing they will walk away with is that Chicago is uniquely positioned with some very, very creative thinkers, some very powerful ideas. We've heard from some phenomenal designers, and I think this notion of design and the importance of design is something that I've really come away with these 2 days thinking about, is the real importance of design in all aspects of producing and executing these kinds of ideas. But again, I also agree 100% with the presenter that just preceded me, Marshall, who said that perhaps this word new is a little dangerous and one that we might want to dispense with. And I think that is something I'm very comfortable with, and hopefully you are too. But I'm here to talk about what's going to happen after today. What is this activity that's culminated in this event going to produce of some kind of substance, of some kind of change in direction that we all can take some enjoyment and some benefit away in. And so I'm talking today to kind of encourage us and to set the stage for what is going to happen after we've gathered here today and after we've shared these ideas and after we've come away with some new concepts, some cards, and some connections. How are we going to implement this vision? First, I'd like to say that, again, I understand that all of you here today are at some level engaged in your own beliefs. You believe that you're the best at what you do. You believe that you have a great idea, a great concept, a great business, a great track record. You believe that you are uniquely positioned to execute those ideas and continue to grow your franchise. You probably believe that you've already started down the road of building a brand, that unless you're in the business like Marshall that actually helps these brands be built, but you also believe that you're a brand yourself. The idea of being brand you. You believe with all the passion, with all your soul, with everything that you've gotten you to this position, that you believe this is the time for you to emerge and assume your rightful position as a director of all things important in your own world. Well, I know that. I hear that. John and I have been getting all the emails telling us that we know a whole lot of things, but we don't know enough about you. If we did, we would have made you half of the first day's segment so you could tell us why you're the greatest thing in the world in Chicago and the world ought to pay attention. Well, you know what? I already know that you believe. I know that you are believers. But now it's time to move beyond belief to demonstration. The issue is, what are you going to do about your belief and how are you going to act it out? And that's what we want to do and make this organization. Again, when we started this, we said that we weren't trying to bring another thespian society. We weren't trying to start a guild. We weren't trying to have another acronym-based association that was going to have monthly meetings and cocktail receptions and membership fees and a membership card and all those other types of things. This was really about a movement. It was really about a change and really about a dynamic of interacting back and forth to make sure that all of us some kind of way get our needs met. And that's exactly about demonstration. So I just want to put this to bed right now, and that is, yes, the Chicago Media Summit is what we are all engaged in today. We said we were going to do this, and we did it. We said that Chicago had all of the latent resources, all of the ammunition needed to get out in front of this opportunity and execute at a very high level. And I think, without a doubt, we did have a wonderful summit. We heard from, again, some of the largest and most successful and greatest practitioners in their respective disciplines. And we also maybe found out that It was a phenomenal breadth of conversation, of dialogue, from foundations and educators, from designers to producers, from people involved in film and the theater. It was just a tremendous breadth of people that all are doing some cutting-edge activities and all receiving quite a lot of acclamation for their success so far. We've heard today from the folks involved with this 2016 activity that this Olympics is kind of putting a timeline out there and kind of putting a mark in the sand, and at their own recognition, they recognize that most of the world that's going to come and find out what we're doing, even the ones that have to vote on if we're going to be so fortunate as to get these Olympics, are going to find that who and what we are through an engaged activity in social media, in new media, or whatever we call it. They're going to come and see what we're about by watching something somewhere that gives them a little inkling about why this is such a special place. And so we did bring this great group of people together, and if anything, one might say that we a little bit overachieved on the amount of content, and clearly when you limit some of these phenomenal presenters and speakers to telling the story of something as storied as Johnson Publishing Company, that is absolutely one of not only a publishing or media legend, but absolutely a business icon that really says everything you need to know about success in Chicago and success in Chicago moving forward that's still being created, is to put all that into 18 minutes is a daunting task. But our charge today is to continue this process and really to engage you. So I'm going to just start a little bit of this engagement right here and right now and ask a few of you bold souls to speak up about if anything could happen moving forward that would help expand your vision of opportunity and vision of what you'd like to see as a result that would really just help you move your project off the dime. What would that be? So I'd like to ask anybody who cared to just shout out if something could happen that would help you realize a near-term goal. Just tell me what that is. Anybody? A resource book. Okay. Tell me what you mean by a resource book.
Programmers, content providers, just inroads into the active community, things like that. Somewhere, some sort of nexus where you can go to.
Very good point. If you didn't hear that, I'll repeat that. The gentleman said that what would help him would be a resource compendium of some kind. And that's something we actually talked about very early on. We said in our statement of purpose that we want to point the direction of where to go to get stuff done at the highest quality level, depending on whatever you want to do in this space. And we'd like to lay out that roadmap. And that's a conversation I actually have. The Illinois Film Office for a couple of years has produced a pretty large compendium that is basically stacked up in their office somewhere and not widely distributed because it's so big and it's got so much information on there. But I agree with you 100%. All of us that are in the area of producing and want to incorporate some of the many tools that we've heard about today, we're not looking necessarily to go back to school and learn how to do this, but if we could lay our hands on somebody that is in this audience and is within our social community of activists that are passionate about this, we'd like to know how to get our hands on them and do that. And so I think our social community is going to be part of that, and I think that we could expand that social community to include things like people's portfolio and connections with really understanding at some level of depth who they are, what they do, and how we can leverage their service into our project. Anybody else? Regular meetings. I couldn't agree more. The point was regular meetings. We need to do something with some level of regularity. I would say that I've been around Chicago all my life. I've been involved with professional organizations in all the different industries I've worked in. And I think what all of us have been able to do, and you really must recognize that this isn't an act of Congress. There's no benevolent people behind to push this forward. This is really something that happened because of your interest, because of your involvement, and because of the work of many, many volunteers, many of whom you'll meet and hear about in our wrap-up presentation today. But this was really a people's choice movement, and it's going to continue. One of the things that you'll see if you have been a little bit engaged on our social network site, Chicago New Media Summit, NING site, our community site, is that some of that has already happened and that groups are formed around some of these areas, like jobs. People want to know, if this is such a phenomenal new area, where are the jobs at? And we've got some people that absolutely know where the jobs are at, both temporary and permanent, and what the skills that are necessary to get those jobs. And they're, in fact, going to have a meeting that's already been posted on the site. And what we intend to see come out of today is that there will be a regular set of meeting activities. All of them won't be this big. All of them won't be this grand, but it'll be a chance to do a deep dive into these areas that are worthy of going deep into, to understand how to mine the value back out on an individual basis. And so I think there are going to be conversations going on. And let me say something right here and right now about those types of conversations. I was involved with a marketing group years back, and one of the tenets that made this particular marketing group in my view, phenomenally successful and really worked to change my life and my perception about marketing. The organization was called MOBI, Marketing Opportunities in Business Entertainment. And they used to give conferences here in Chicago, and they used to go to different cities around the country. But the one thing that they did, I think better than any other marketing organization, is they built community. And they built community with some basic tenets, and I'd like to incorporate one of those tenets into our movement moving forward. And one of the things that they told all the presenters and everybody that was involved, if you ever get a phone call or an email with somebody who you know is involved with the New Media Summit, and they say, hey, I met you at the New Media Summit, or I saw your picture on the site at the New Media Summit, and I have a question. The charge is to take that call or respond to that email. And I said that in our meeting back in June, and I say that again. If any of you here today could really change the world, I think you could change it by being respectful and giving some time to each other. And I would really ask you to do that. If you get a call after today, or you get an email after today from somebody that you met here, you know, we all go to these conferences and stack a bunch of cards in our pocket. We all say we're going to follow up with somebody, and we add them to our friend on our Facebook page. But somebody, I think it was Mike Salvatore, says, you know, I'm just about social networked out. All of these so-called friends, I wonder, could I really count on them if I had a project to do? And, you know, that's a really good point, and I concur with Mike on that. And so how we can make a point of difference about the Chicago activity is to, when we get a call, take that call. Let's get down to the business of what can be a win-win and working together with each other. And I think if we just lend and give, not with the immediate prospects of, well, how am I going to get paid out of this, or what's my portion of the deal, or can I get 51% of the project? If we just will give, and I think nobody said it better than Jason Fried. I really love his comments the other day. You know, it's really helping people to learn what we're so passionate about. And sometimes we've got to teach them into understanding our passion. And I think if each one of us here could teach why we're so passionate about interactive, why we're so passionate about search engine marketing, what's so exciting about Twitter, and let's look at some of the different ways. I encourage all of us to engage in this process, and I think it's going to happen in regular meetings, and it's going to happen in regular meetings in terms of some of the subsets that are part of the organizations that we've come to develop. And again, we thought of some of the names for some of these groups, but a lot of these names came from yourselves who said, hey, I think we ought to be talking about Web 2 on beyond. And lo and behold, 40 people on the site wanted to talk about that, and some of them have met already, and we will continue to produce these kind of activities. Anyone else, please tell me what you would like to see happen. Yes?
Another summit or similar meeting that's specifically in partnership with and specifically targeted at Chicago 2016.
I couldn't agree more. Again, we went through some consternation to try to connect with them. We didn't know we wanted to connect with them directly. We wanted to connect with them through the agency. We heard talk that Pat Ryan was even going to come and wanted to be a part. And I actually believe that he did. And I actually believe that he will be very supportive, because I think without a doubt, from the mayor to Pat Ryan to Deb DeHaas and to their complete advisory board, one thing they learned when they went to Beijing is that the only thing people knew about Chicago is what they were finding out through some of these dialogues. And they really, the City of Chicago website, the cityofchicago.org, wasn't really telling the whole story that needed to be told. And so now they're very passionate and adamant, and I think the guys here today are at the core of that, and I agree 100%. And in fact, that's really leading me to what's going to happen from today. And that this organization, we struggled with it ourselves. We didn't even want to call it because we said a movement and an organization isn't about a point in time. It isn't about an event. It's really more than that. It's something that goes on and gets stirred up and keeps moving. So as of today, we're going to take your advice. We're going to take Marshall's advice. We're going to take everybody's advice. And we're going to move away from this concept of the Chicago New Media Summit. After that, this will not be our name. We're going to have a new name. And let me tell you what that new name is. Again, I know that I'm largely preaching to the choir. I know that I'm in a room full of believers. I know you have the belief deep down in your soul. But the goal is to move beyond belief to demonstration, to demonstrating that we can follow through and do all the things. And again, as you said in the 2016, and what I like about that is the clock is ticking. The clock is ticking. And so this is something that we came up with. And let me describe just briefly in the time that I have left how we were able to do this. Is I made a kind of an off-the-cuff remark when we were at the Cultural Center, and I mentioned to Marshall of CK that, hey, you know, you got this great big agency and you're phenomenally successful and you got this wonderful space on Michigan Avenue. You know, wouldn't it be great if you could carve some space out of that place and help incubate some companies and some ideas? Maybe bring an interactive guy in or bring somebody doing one of these mobile things in. And, you know, sometimes you say things and you say things very passionately and you really believe that. But oftentimes when you say it, you don't know what to expect, or you're not expecting what you should be expecting, and that somebody hears you and they will respond. And so I want to say today thanks very much to Marshall and the staff at CK, because it turned out they incubated us. We had 2 or 3 whiteboard sessions. And John and I went by to talk to Marshall, and we said, you know, we know that Chicago News Summit name is not going to get it, and that's not even something we want to live with after we pull this event off. And so we had some whiteboard sessions, and we sat down and we talked, and we brought some of our partners in, and some of our board members and founders were at the table. Some of the people that came and provided us with some of our early levels of support were there. And so we sat down and we moved around and we worked it, and Marshall pulled and tugged and fought and cajoled and did all of the kind of magic that he probably does on a daily basis, but he did it just like he probably does it for these brands that have become world and legendary famous. And we were able to push it out of ourselves, the things that were really inside of us, and ultimately is what we're about and why this idea is an idea this time has come. And so we came up with this new name, the Chicago Convergence, where talent, ideas, and code collide. And I love that name because I'm kind of a little geeky type character. And I was thinking in fact, when we did this, it was, I think, the day after that Fermi Lab was involved in the big physics experiment that was going on, and everybody was saying, you know, it's going to be a black hole when these guys turn the generator on, and we're all going to get swooped up. And I said, well, if it turns on to happen, you won't have to worry about it because you won't be here. But it speaks to the depth and breadth of Chicago's capacity. We know unequivocally that we have talent, and it's been just, again, off the chain demonstrated. And the other thing that's been demonstrated here today is that big companies are making big investments in the talent that's here in Chicago. Again, this is one of the biggest, if not the largest market, where Comcast is building out this large, gigantic interactive platform. Here, Sprint has chosen this city for this new wireless broadband platform. But that's just chips and bits. It's going to take us. They have no idea what the killer app is going to be, but the talent that's in this room and the talent in this city does. To have ideas and talent and code come together, again, is what's so phenomenal and I think groundbreaking about the work of this group. And this is the work that's going to continue. We're going to keep pushing the envelope so that our members become aware of appropriate technology, how to use it and be successful in executing it at depth to make it work for the real jobs that we have to do. And that's building brands, building companies, creating jobs, changing education, changing the way the quality of life works for not just people that are downtown within a mile radius of this location, but they may be in a mile radius of Devon or Western or Halstead or Ashland or out in some of these neighborhoods and communities that represent, as someone said earlier, from 2016, the 200 different nationalities or languages that people speak in Chicago. All of these places are teeming with creativity that can find a home and find an opportunity here within our dialogue. So again, as we move forward with talent, as we move forward with ideas, this will be the name that you will hear, the Chicago Convergence, where all of this opportunity will continue. We are going to continue this, but let me give appeal right now. We cannot continue it. We had a wonderful set of volunteers that really put their heart and soul in pulling this off, and I think it's a testament to them and a testament to the vision of John and Malachi that this actually could happen at the level it happened. And again, of one of the many rounds of applause, I wish that you would give John and everybody a round of applause here today. We absolutely, this is an inflection point. This is a tipping point. This is a point in time that we have the opportunity to come together. I couldn't be more happy. I was happy then, and I'm elated now to have the caliber of folks that are still in the seats right now, that after 2 days of conversing about this broad range of intellectual and challenging technical topics are still in the room because you have some skin in the game. And that skin is your skin. And we want to make sure that you are made whole in this entire process. So we are going to continue. We've got a new name. We've got a grandiose vision. We've got the best of people in the world to help us pull it off. We will execute it. And again, I encourage all of you to let everyone know who could not make it that because they couldn't be here today doesn't mean that we don't care about them, that they're not included in this process. Tell them to come and join up on our social network. Tell them to come to look for our new branding activity. But more importantly, come on and get engaged with us to make what will make this work for you a good part of our marching orders. And I guarantee you, both John and myself, if you call anybody or email anybody, and you have any trouble making any contact with any concept or person that you learned about, either from our site or from this meeting today, let us know. Let me know. My number and my email address has been out there from the beginning. I'm not hiding from anybody. You can contact me, and my job is to work with you and help make your opportunities for new media a success in the real world, not as a fantasy and not as some vague concept, but our metrics are going to be the number of people that were here today, the kinds of relationships they were able to build, the kinds of projects they were able to produce, and we're going to go back and tell the world that it happened because of good connections that were made right here at this summit. So again, I want to thank you all for sticking with us through this entire process. And I hope that, again, when you get that phone call or that email from somebody, whether they're a student or whether they're a 15-year film producer, take the call if they start out saying, hey, I met you or I talked to you through the Chicago New Media Summit. Take that call and support their vision. Thank you very much.